Today, let's imagine a world where graphics cards are at MSRP. What could we build? We're going to do an Intel build and an AMD build and see, what if we dreamed a little bit, what's the possibilities? Let's get into it. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Adrian Reddix, and today we're talking about what kind of builds we would make if graphics cards were at MSRP. And for reference, if you don't know what MSRP means, it's manufacturer suggested retail price, right? So what could we build if prices were not insanely high? If you don't know, and this is sometime in the future, hey future people, graphics cards went extremely high. I have a video about that and why graphics cards are as high as they are or were, right? Like a lot of people, I've been just dreaming about what kind of builds I would make. I can't tell you how many builds have gone through my head about, budget builds or high-end builds or mid-range builds. So when I talk about dream build, I'm not talking about these godlike boards and a 3090 or a high-end graphics card or a high-end CPU. My dream build is buying what I need to do what I needed to do. Not a bang for your buck build, but a sort of like a mid-range build. So everything I could possibly think of and still have room to adjust as I need, right? So it's about a mid-range. So if I need to add something, or even if I need to take something away and replace it so I can bring the cost down, those are the builds. Those are my dream builds. The builds where they're flexible, not so super high end that the only way you can't go up anymore. There's no fun in tweaking or taking parts out and doing things like that. It's not my cup of tea. One thing that the high graphics card has caused me to do, and I think a lot of tech people should do, is hone your interest in other aspects of technology, not just consuming PC parts. What about, I've been doing a lot of micro soldering. I've been doing a couple Pi projects with the Raspberry Pi, which I got to do another video on. And also, I've been getting into microphones. Been trying to do that and explore audio because that's very interesting to me. So one positive thing was me getting my other interests a little more honed, a little more into that. So let's get into some of these builds. What would we build if GPUs were at MSRP? We're going to have an AMD build and an Intel build. The AMD build is going to be a mostly dark build, and Intel build will be a mostly white build or mostly light build. So the case I chose for the AMD build is going to be the Antech DP502 Flux in black. This is a very nice looking case. Ever since I've seen people start building with it, I like the design, and the airflow seems to be pretty cool with two fans in the front and an exhaust fan in the back. And also for those people who want or can't live without the external 5.25 inch bays, they have two of those for optical drives, which I don't know if I'd put an optical drive on it, but I'll definitely put like a card reader in there, so you can have that built in, or it could just be as flexible as you want it to be. Real cool design. I like it a whole bunch. And for our motherboard, I chose the MSI B450 Tomahawk Max. It has everything you would need in a board. You have enough SATA ports. Of course, you have your RGB pins and things like that. It's just an all-around really good board that does anything that you needed to do, and it's flexible where you can add more if you want to, or it's a very capable motherboard. The only thing I don't like about the motherboard is the IO shield doesn't come pre-installed, but that's a minor headache. That's no big deal. Now, as far as the CPU, we're gonna go with the AMD Ryzen 5 3600. It is a beast of a CPU. They're in a lot of builds, and as far as if you're doing streaming or if you're gonna do some video editing, or it'll tear gaming up. It's still, even though it's not the newest 5000 series, I still think that it's still a performance beast. It still can knock it out the park. No questions asked. It's 6 cores, 12 threads for around what? For around $210. You can't beat that. It is a really, really good processor that has a really good performance. Now, as far as RAM, this is a company that is in a lot of budget builds, but just because it's in a lot of budget builds doesn't mean it's not quality RAM. And it's going to be the TeamGroup T-Force Delta RGB 3200 CL16 RAM. It is fantastic. 16 gigabytes is going to be around $100-ish. And as far as performance, it knocks it out the park, especially if you need to get into some 4K editing. This 16 gigabytes with this CPU. Now let's go ahead and clear something out. Any computer made in the last 10 years can do 4K editing. You can technically do 4K editing on a Raspberry Pi. It would be extremely slow. It'll take you 3 weeks to get a 5-minute video done, but you can do it. So when people try to say, oh, this is a 4K editing rig, it's not if it can edit 4K, it's how fast it can edit 4K. But that's neither here nor there. But this particular model of the Delta TeamGroup RAM, it is just a RAM that works. It is a fantastic RAM. I've got my hands on one of the TeamGroup T-Force and tried it out on a build I was doing for a friend. Well, this was a couple years ago, and it worked fantastic. So for the SSD is going to be the Western Digital Black 500 gigabyte. I mean, it's a very solid piece of equipment from a very solid company, and it just works. You know, the M.2 drive is going to be a lot quicker. It's going to save you a lot of space as far as not having to route cables or finding a way to put that 2.5 SSD somewhere in the case, right? So it saves space and it saves you having to deal with cables. And it's a competent, really, really good piece of equipment. And as far as cooling, I decided to go with the CoolerMaster Master Liquid ML240L. It is a really, really good AIO. As far as if I'm gonna do a little overclocking and things like that, it does fantastic. It's a very quiet AIO. It doesn't have these noisy fans knocking around and things like that. So it's made for, I'm not gonna say stealth, because what are you sneaking up on? But as far as if you're streaming or if you're doing some type of voiceover or something like that, it won't interfere with that. It'll keep my CPU cool, and it gives you those fancy RGBs that people like, so you can customize your box and make it your own. And as far as the power supply I'm gonna pick for this is the Seasonic S12 III. It's going to be an 80 plus bronze power supply. So you need that rating. To me, if you don't have a rating on your power supply, you're risking some really weird voltage issues happening in your build, and you could burn up a bunch of components and things like that. So make sure it's rated. I know they have, $20, $30 power supplies, but I would just spend a little more money and get something that's at least 80 plus bronze rated. I wouldn't go any less than that. If it doesn't have that, don't touch it. But the Seasonic seems to be a favorite of a lot of mid-range builds. It's not modular, so that's one thing. But if you look back at the Antech case, it has that cover there. So anything you don't use, you can just hide it and it'll be fine. You don't have to look at it. And it doesn't having that case doesn't cause it to be a wire or a cable management nightmare. Now, as far as graphics cards, I decided let's just do a whole AMD build. We're gonna have the AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT. Usually, if it was MSRP for the reference card, it'll be $479, right? But as we know, that's not the case. But as far as a capable graphics card, it can handle 1440p gaming. And as far as 4K editing, you don't need a huge over-the-top graphics card to do editing. But I don't edit in 4K. I think it's too much data. 1080p is plenty enough. So if you do 1080p editing or 1080p gaming, this will blow that out the water. If you want to bump up to 1440, again, it's a very capable one to do that. So let's go to Intel. And the case I picked for my Intel build is going to be the Fractal design Meshify C in white. So this is a very cool looking case. It has a very nice design in the front. It's a black and white case. It has 3 case fans with an exhaust fan in the back. I'm telling you that an exhaust fan is a very important part of a case. If your case doesn't come in one, as far as I know this one does, but if you have a build that doesn't come with an exhaust fan, put an exhaust fan on it. There's plenty of room for everything you need. Even if you wanted to put a old school hard drive in it, you can do that. Bays for 2.5-inch drive. It has everything you should need, and it accommodates all types of builders. So if you're still into hard drives, which I'm kind of into as far as long-term storage, I wouldn't put any games or any programs on it because, I mean, you will lose even the fastest hard drive. The motherboard is going to be the Asus Prime H570 Plus. Again, it's another one of those boards that has everything you need. 2 M.2 drives, gigabit Ethernet port, USB 3.2, Thunderbolt 4. And as far as design, it goes with our mostly light build. Has all the things you need as far as flexibility on what you want to put on there. And it's a very competent board. And as far as the CPU we're putting in it, it's going to be the Intel Core i5 10600KF. To me, it's a very comparable CPU to the Ryzen 5 3600, 6 cores, 12 threads. As far as value for performance, I like the Core i5 range from Intel because anything lower, like the i3, just isn't powerful enough for me to do what I want to do. And as far as the i7 and the i9, the i7 seems just to be stuck, like it doesn't know what it wants to be. And the i9, of course, is the powerhouse of the bunch. But again, the powerhouse costs powerhouse money. But the i5 to me is right there in that range where price and performance are optimized. And with a base clock of 4.1 gigahertz with a turbo boost max of 4.8, I mean, it does everything I needed to do. It can handle, 1440p gaming. I know it can handle all the editing workload that I'd be pushing on it. When I'm talking about streaming, I know it's capable of holding me down for everything I throw at it. When we're talking about SSD for the Intel build, we're going to use the same exact SSD, the Western Digital Black 500 gigabyte M.2 drive. I mean, it's just, it works. It does what it needs to do. And it's something that it's not a lot to say about it. It's just a fantastic piece of equipment. For RAM, it's going to be the Crucial Ballistic 3200 CL16 RAM. Nothing fancy as far as a lot of bright RGBs or anything like that. But Crucial, as I said in my last video, is going to be a very dependable product as far as the Ballistic series of RAM. I've used it in the last 5 builds that I've built because it just works. I've done 4K editing on Crucial on the 16 gigabytes. I've done a whole myriad of things on their streaming, gaming. I even have a build out there that does CAD and it handles it no issue. Reminder, all of these links are in the description below, so you can get some parts whenever GPUs decide they want to be a reasonable price, whenever that happens. As far as the cooler, I went with a slim fan cooler. It's going to be the DeepCool Gamma Max GTE V2 in white. If you know anything about DeepCool, DeepCool is a very good CPU cooler. It's got a 120 millimeter fan on the front, 4 heat pipes so you can get that heat off that CPU and make sure you're as cool as you really need to be. As far as power supply, the same power supply that we use in the AMD build, the Seasonic S12 III. is going to be just as competent in this build, and I didn't see any reason why to change it. It is a very solid power supply. There's no qualms about it. Seasonic makes a very good part. I mean, the 550 variant should be enough to power this build, but if you're a little bit on the skeptic side, of course, go up to the 650 or however high you want to go, but the 550 to me is a good deal. Now, as far as graphics card, I want to go to similar MSRP price to the 6700 XT. And the one that's similar in price but not performance is going to be the RTX 3070. The 3070 is the graphics card I'm waiting on to come down in price, because when I build my build, the 3070 is going to be the center of that build. And the reference card is going to be for $499. If you don't know, it has more CUDA cores, more tensor cores, all that good stuff that makes everybody feel all the tinglies inside. And as far as streaming, the encoding on the Nvidia graphics card is second to none. So if you're into streaming and you're serious about it, then you go with the Nvidia. Let's talk about MSRP price of the AMD build. It's gonna be $1,178.99, which is fantastic. Yay. A nice mid-range build. It's not too low where we can't upgrade, and it's not too high where we're spending a whole bunch of money. The Intel build's around $1,193, which again, as far as a mid-range build, that's not bad. It's a little higher end, but that's fine. But the reality of graphics cards prices is going to be, if you buy the same AMD build today, paying the cheapest I found them on eBay, which was around $900, it'll be, what's that total? It's going to be around $1,600 for that same exact build. That is ridiculous. A 500 some odd increase in price. And as far as the Intel build, if you were to build that exact same build, the cheapest I found the 3070 sold on eBay is going to be for $1,300, and that's going to bring that price to almost $2,000. That is ridiculous, but that's the current climate we live in. You know, people are still buying these, so if you really wanted to build one of these and you have the money, they're on eBay, brand new. It's not the best thing, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue to dream, and hopefully in the near future, graphics cards are back to MSRP. So I'm going to have a lot of these fantasy builds of what I could build until that time comes where I can get a graphics card at a reasonable price. What kind of GPU MSRP dream build would you build? Tell me in the comments below, what graphics card are you waiting on? I would love to know. If you like this type of video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like this type of video, give me a thumbs down. Tell me why you didn't like this type of video. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.